Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are on page 79 of your student journal, and our objective or goal for the day is today I will add fractions by joining parts, period. Okay, so our vocabulary today is really nothing new. They're reminding us what the two parts of a fraction are. We have a numerator, which is the number of equal parts being considered, and I've always talked about, we think of that as what we have. Our numerator is how many parts we have. And then our denominator is the total number of equal parts in the whole. So how many parts was the whole partitioned or cut into? And then they give us an example here of a fraction equation. And what I want you to notice in the fraction equation is, notice there's an addition sign, but when they added, they only added the numerators. So 2 plus 1 parts equals 3 parts. The denominators never were added. Okay, so our steps today are, step 1, represent the fraction equation with the visual model. And then step 2, find the sum of the fraction equation and model by adding only the numerators. So that's a key there. Add only the numerators. Okay, so what does this actually look like? Here's my first problem. And it says 2/3 plus 1/3 equals blank. So my first step says I'm going to represent the equation with a visual model. So 2/3, a 3 denominator means that I cut it into 3 parts. And when you partition circles, you always have to go to the center. So it needs to be partitioned into 3 parts. And the 2, the numerator 2 tells me I have 2 of the parts. So I have 1, 2. Okay, then, so that is 2/3 right here, plus 1/3. So 1/3, it still means it was partitioned into thirds. That's what the denominator 3 means. And then the 1 means I have 1 of the thirds. So I have 1 piece. And I'll say I have this one. So if I put that together and I add those together, well, I could take these 2 and put them over here. So I have those 2. And then I have this one I could add over here, which means I have a whole that was divided or partitioned into 3 parts. That's my denominator, and my numerator is a 3 because I have all 3 parts, which is equal to 1. Okay, let's look at another one. This one, they want me to represent it using a visual model of a number line. So it says 1/5 plus 3/5. Okay, so the 5 tells me I need to partition this into 5 parts. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts, which means that's 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5, and 1 is 5/5. Okay, so 1/5 means that I just jumped 1. Okay, this one is 3/5, so we're gonna add 3/5. So again, the 5 means I have to partition this into 5 parts, which is 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5, and 1 is equal to 5/5. And this time, they jumped 1, 2, 3 parts. Okay, so when I add those together, let's partition this one, 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5, and 5/5. That means I'm going to jump 1, plus I'm going to jump 3, so 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 parts, and I end up at 4/5. Okay, so those are 2 different strategies. I prefer the top model, but sometimes you won't have an option. They'll ask you to give it a specific way. Let's try some together. We're on page 80, and here's our first problem. It says, use a visual model to find the sum. Okay, so our first one is 3/8. So we have 3/8, and the denominator 8 says we have to partition this into eighths. So the easiest way is to go like this. That made it into fourths, and then if we cut those in half again, we'll have 8 parts. Okay, so I partitioned it into eighths, and the 3 numerator says I have 3 of them. So I'm going to shade in these 3. Okay, plus we're going to add 2/8 to it. So the 8 means we have to partition our whole into eighths again. And the 2 means I have 2 parts. I'm going to shade in these 2. Notice I'm using a different green just to make it a little clearer to you. Okay, so if we put those together, if we add all those pieces or parts into one, I'm going to move these 3 over here. So those 3 are going right here. And these 2 are going right here. So what do I have total? We have a whole that's partitioned into 8 pieces, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the 8 pieces. And that is our answer. Okay, let's try one using the number line. Okay, this says that 5/10, so 10 means we have to partition this into tenths. Okay, that's going to be really hard because it's really small. So I'm going to do it in half first, and then that means I need 5 parts and 5 parts here. Those are going to be really small parts. So small that I don't know if I can write all the fractions, so I might just write the main ones. So that's 5/10. That means I have to jump 5 parts. Let's count my parts first just to make sure. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 parts. So 5 over would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is 5/10, and we could jump 5/10. This one line would be 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, 5/10, 6/10, 7/10, 8/10, 9/10, and 10/10. Okay. This one, let's partition also into tenths. We need much bigger lines. And this time, they only want us to add 3/10. So this time, we're going to jump 3 parts. So we're going to jump right there. 1, 2, 3 parts, which that's 3/10 right there. Okay, now when we add that together, and we jump 5 and then 3 more, let's come over here and partition this one in half, and then these into 5 parts. So if I jump first 5 parts, and then I jump 3 parts from there, 1, 2, 3, what do I end up at? Well, that's 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, 5/10, 6/10, 7/10, 8/10. So what we're noticing is that same thing where we're just adding our numerators. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, you have 3 pages to try on your own. Have a wonderful afternoon.